Hello, and thanks for joining me for this RedMonk Conversation with Tracy Lee, CEO of This.Labs, a modern web consultancy that specializes in JavaScript, although I know you've got your hand in a lot of other parts of the stack here. So Tracy is extremely accomplished and has been a leader in the tech industry space for many years. She hosts the Modern Web podcast. And for those of you who still use the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, you probably know Tracy as Lady Leet. So Tracy, I'm so glad you could be here today, and thanks for making some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's so good to be on.
All right, so I'm super excited to have Tracy here to speak with us a little bit about the JavaScript ecosystem and developer relations more broadly. So let's dig in. There has been a lot of transition lately in the front-end framework space. I'm thinking specifically of Vercel's partnership with Astro and Netlify's decision to acquire Gatsby and the end of its support for 11D. Do you have any thoughts about what is driving this sort of disruption in the JavaScript ecosystem?
I think what's interesting is like a few years ago, right? We saw a lot of, it was almost like every successful open source project and every person, every maintainer of a successful open source project was able to raise money or thought that they could start a business to monetize something, right? And so there was a lot of, there was a lot of money put into that and a lot of, innovation, I suppose. And then, over the past year or so, right, things have kind of slowed down a little bit, or the players who raised more, et cetera, have kind of become generally more, certain people have become more successful and certain people have like not made it, I would say. So you're seeing a lot of just like general consolidation, in my opinion, within the industry. I think in open source and startups, there's a lot of burnout, right? So the question is, I think this doesn't just go for like open source maintainers, but this also goes for like people who start startups. What are your motivations? How much energy do you have to put into it? Do you want to keep doing this or not? And what does that mean? And also, how good of a maintainer or founder are you to be able to build a successful thing, right? It's not that easy. And I think the venture world, not only has the funds dried up a little bit, but it's kind of made people think in a different lens to say, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't just like throw money at every maintainer who wants to build a successful company, because building a successful open source project doesn't mean you're going to be able to build a successful company. So a lot of people, again, have pulled back from that. Consolidation generally, right? I mean, you can, there's hot gossip on Gatsby and why Gatsby wasn't successful, like depending on who you talk to, right? I think the 11D thing is just a consolidation thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, you look at Vercel and I don't know, for the past how many years have they just like been buying everything up? Or at least that's how it feels, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those seem to be the star players and the situation with Gatsby being acquired. It seems to be a big part of that story too. And your read on that really resonates here. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So I'm curious about what you're seeing at This.Labs and, where do you see the JavaScript framework space going in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, decade? I mean, what are you most excited about? And like, where do you think smart money is going in these, folks who are following these conversations?
I think everybody's general consensus is that React has, won the race, right? You look a few years ago, you look at React, Angular, Vue, who's winning. And React, you cannot compare with the ecosystem. You just can't. You can't compete with the ecosystem. I think that, again, it just depends on who you talk to, right? I mean, there's just so many hot takes of, modern React is difficult. And then you talk to some other people to say, well, I don't know why you're saying modern React is difficult, because it's not. You probably just don't understand what's happening. Or, hey, the React 18 release was good or bad. I mean, it's like, which gossip column do you read, right? But I think what's really important, though, is that React definitely does pay the bills. React is what most of the ecosystem is building on. Maybe not because it's the coolest thing or the fastest thing or whatever, but because it has basically become 70% of the ecosystem, if I just like throw out a random number out there. But I've loved it this year because I've seen so much excitement, right? We started off this year with like, oh my gosh, solid, svelte, quick, island architecture, like, is it exciting? Is it not? How are people doing things? Like that type of stuff is really interesting, and seeing core teams kind of wake up. And it's funny because we're like end of 2023 from COVID. It took 3 years for everyone to kind of wake up for this innovation to start happening. So I love the stuff that Quick is doing and kind of like pushing the envelope there. I love what Svelte with the Svelte 4 release. Everybody's kind of like, finally, come on, after so many years. So hopefully the Svelte 5 release comes out soon. Seems like everyone is adopting signals, except for React, for example. And, TC39 as well, right? Like, I think 2015 TC39 was really interesting because you saw all the stuff coming out of it, right? Like ES 2015, getting excited about JavaScript. That's kind of when JavaScript really took off, in my opinion. People started getting excited about it. Over the past few years, I feel like, I don't know, some of the standards, in my opinion, are like, I don't know, they're not interesting to me because they're so far removed from like our everyday work, right? But now with TC39 and Whatwig and things like observables being, added to the browser, or signals being talked about from a standardization perspective, like that stuff feels so tangible and interesting. And those are the conversations that are happening now. And it's making, in my opinion, like TC39 and Whatwig just be like way more interesting. Tons of stuff happening with CSS as well. Like people just getting excited about JavaScript again. So the innovation, I think, will, again, be really interesting. And I don't know. I mean, you're never bored. I mean, we're a little bored, I guess, in 2020, but Solid as well, right? I mean, I didn't mention Solid, but like Solid's going to be doing a release, I don't know, hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months or so, right? And that'll be really exciting. And they have a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline.
Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about some developer relations stuff?
Sure.
I know this.labs has been doing a lot of really cool stuff. You're a leader in creating content. So I'm really interested in how this is generating this content and really like following the pulse of the developer community. So in addition to the Modern Web podcast, there's the local download newsletter, the JS Minute, virtual events like the State of DevOps, which aired this month. And then, so just talk to me about the challenges of curating and organizing this content. How do you decide what's news and information that is worthy of your developer audience?
I mean, that's hard. That's hard to figure out, in my opinion. But, for me, generally, I've been all about building community since I got into JavaScript. So I think content generally should be accessible to everybody, right? So at this generally, we are a JavaScript consultancy. So we have a team of about 50 engineers, and we work on, projects like T-Mobile, Wikimedia, Google, Meta, Twilio, Cloudinary, those types of companies. And we help them with engineering problems. So we love to solve engineering problems. But I think because of my passion for community, what we're able to do is, we really believe in this idea of like making the developer world a better place. And so what that means is, hey, you know what, if we can help our clients on hard engineering problems, sometimes it's people and process problems, to be honest, right? And do that, then we can kind of support being able to bring more energy into open source. Because in my opinion, the more people you talk to, or the more people you can get in the same room together, the more problems you can solve. So, when I first started this a lot of it was listening to different core teams chat, right? I was from the Bay Area and I was talking to, the Angular core team. And then, I was on the ArcGIS core team, and there were complaints back and forth. And it's like, well, why didn't you guys just all get in a room together? So that type of stuff is amazing, because if literally all it takes is getting the same people, the right people in a room together to make the ecosystem a better place, why aren't we just doing more of that? And that's kind of always been my philosophy. So I love to do that type of stuff. And I love to tell stories as well. And what's exciting? I don't know. What seems exciting? That's kind of who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, it's working, obviously. I mean, I found the Modern Web podcast early on, and I'm a devotee. I was telling Tracy how much I like the opening jingle. Like it's a real earworm. It gets stuck in my head. I know. So developer relations has taken pride of place, both in terms of the content coming out of this dot, but also in your newest venture, DevRel City.
Yes.
So developer relations, it's been going through kind of a rust patch recently.
Yes.
There's been a number of, high profile layoffs, folks rethinking the discipline more broadly, thinking of Ali Diamond's video, Why I Left Developer Relations. So what do you think signals a sort of healthy and valuable DevRel community? And how is DevRel City going to support teams focused on making the experience of developers, as good as it can be?
Yeah. So what I forgot to mention in my last comment is that we this dot have been doing developer relations consulting for quite some time, and I typically just do it. Like I used to just do it for friends. Like we wouldn't advertise it that much because developer relations is really about building relationships and community, right? And that's not something you can it's not like marketing, right? Where like you buy a list and you can just spam a bunch of people. It truly is related to building relationships, which is hard. And, you can't do that at scale, in my opinion, in like one specific industry. But a lot of the problems we were trying to solve for our clients were, startups or organizations like looking to start more into DevRel. And for me, it's really about building a foundation. I've in my past life, I have a marketing background. So like in my past life, I was doing marketing. I did get really good at PR, like community PR at my last company. It's hard in my opinion. But what I really believe is that relationships need to come from within, right? So we would help a lot of companies start a foundation. Like, for example, we helped, we've helped like React training, for example, Michael Jackson, with, his training, like, okay, you're going to do a training in Chicago. What does that mean? Who do you need to meet? What meetups are around, or startups who are just saying, hey, we want to get into the Vue community. Okay, what does that look like? Well, what are all the meetups? What are all the podcasts? What are all the conferences? Where do you need to go? What does that look like? Who are the influencers? And because, again, this is just very like, you're just building lists, in my opinion. We're like, well, let's just build a product that does that for people and give them access to it. It eliminates hours and hours and hours of work. You're talking about like 40 to 80 hours plus, maybe like to maintain. I feel like, some people pay like a full-time person just to maintain these things.
Wow.
So anyways, I think it's like $500 or $600 a month. And then, DevRel City just kind of does it for you. So starting in JavaScript, but again, solving the problem that everybody starts with. And the point is not to like allow you to like spam a ton of people, but the point is to like direct you into the right community. I think, communities, especially in development, move so fast, right? Like somebody 1 year can be like, okay, I'm in. Like, you look at Chloe Condon, right? And she was like, I don't know, she was like in the JavaScript community talking about cool things. And then like all of a sudden she's like doing something else. Or like Sean Wang was, in React, and then he wasn't doing React, and then he was doing Svelte, and now he's not doing Svelte, and he's doing AI stuff right now. Like, how do you even know that? So keeping track of all that for somebody is kind of what we're trying to do with DevRel City.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially because it is so difficult. I think as analysts, we try to follow these threads too. And yeah, it's a full-time job trying to figure out where everybody's moving and they're, if they've, created some important content recently. And I mean, developer relations is not just a static thing.
It moves fast.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was just talking to Max Stoiber. Max Stoiber, he created Styled Components back in, 2015, 2016.
Oh, wow.
I remember when that was. And he created React Boilerplate. And, gosh, I haven't talked to him in so long. But he's like CEO of a company. They raised $30 million. They are in GraphQL. I didn't know Max was in GraphQL until I talked to him. And I've been doing GraphQL stuff for I don't know how many years, right? And how long ago did he start that company?
Right.
So it moves fast. I mean, technology generally and people move fast.
Yeah. Okay. And do you think developer relations is going to survive this, I guess, economic downturn? It seems that's how I typically hear it explained.
Yes. I think there is, I'm writing a book on developer relations as well. So DevRel City will have a lot of blog posts about this coming out soon. But I think people were doing developer relations because they felt like they needed to and not understanding truly what developer relations was.
I see.
And, some companies who have put their entire marketing effort has been developer relations forever. Mm-hmm. And I won't name names, but they're scaling back and it's just what? And the problem with developer relations as well is that the ROI you get on it is not immediate. So there's never a direct correlation. It's really hard to find a good direct correlation between what a DevRel person does on a daily basis to what a monthly or quarterly metric is. Unless you can, but then is it a vanity metric? Then was it the developer relations person? Or was it the marketing person? Was it because of a sales thing? Who knows? But I think what developer relations does is really help you find a foundation, right? So, there's different areas of developer relations, like developer experience, which, can encompass things like documentation, for example, written examples, just general education within the developer community, is maybe something more tangible, maybe something more product focused and something that people can justify because the onboarding experience or the retention of a customer for these SaaS companies that are paying for it, they'll be able to see the direct value on. Mm-hmm. But I guess the question is developer evangelism, right? Going to a ton of conferences, is there value in it? But I will say, for example, Mishko Hevery, who founded Angular at Google, since moved on to work at Quick and create Quick. He was able to make Quick actually talked about and respected within just a few months. Maybe it took him a year, maybe it took him 6 months, right? But the fact that Quick was put on left of the same words, or left the mouths of people who were talking about Svelte Solid. It was Svelte Solid Quick. Mm-hmm. That's huge.
Right.
I mean, that was because Mishko said yes to everything. He was at every single possible conference you could ever freaking imagine. And so you can't say it doesn't work, right? Sebastian Vizolets, who used to be at Progress NativeScript, you could see from the downloads, where did Sebastian go to a conference? And that directly correlated to what country was getting, NativeScript downloads.
Wow.
But
that's interesting.
But I mean, that's hard. And I think the metrics and the standardizations of what DevRel means to different organizations and how they measure value is still so all over the place. And honestly, will the industry ever come to like some level of a standard? I don't know, but like,
yeah, doesn't seem likely.
The other crazy thing though, to me about developer relations is, here's what I think typically happens in a product, right? You see this all the time. SaaS companies, they have a good sales team. The sales people network with the right people, right? So the C-levels or whoever's signing the checks make these business deals. Okay, $5 million contract. Okay, we sold it. Okay, so you think that, X SaaS company has, SaaS product is being adopted everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But then in reality, boots on the ground, developers hate it, but they're stuck into a 5-year contract.
Right.
But developer relations can help that because they can see it, they can feel the pulse, they can help those developers be successful and make it sticky and retain. Or in 5 years, your company was dead 2 years ago. It's just that there was a contract. So the people who are saying, oh, no, we're not going to invest in developer relations right now, your product might already be dead, but you just don't know it because fine, you have a contract, but in reality, everybody hates it. And, 3 years later, you're SOL. So I still think investing in developer relations is really important. I just think having organizations understand why they're doing it, what they want to do, and somehow figuring it out. But, there's no real good answer. It's hard.
No, I think all of these anecdotes are really valuable. And I think it just kind of points to the fact that companies need to be strategic when they're thinking about developer relations, and that's really that's as close to a good answer as you're going to get, because I'm sure it depends on the products themselves that are being addressed, the size of the company. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved. It's never just going to be push button for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I want to thank Tracy for sharing her insights with me today. You can find out more about DevRel City at devrel.city and follow Lady Leet on X. Thank you.